extend a very warm welcome to all of you here for joining us today for an evening that promises to be exciting and enriching. I am Alicia Lad and I'm the sub-editor at Architect and Interiors India, and I will be your host for this evening. So let me start by telling you a bit about this event. Architect and Interiors India's flagship property design debate takes on two topics, tradition and technology, that are arguably two sides of the same coin. They exist in a delicate balance, and this balance is what will dictate the designs of the future. So every month we head to an exciting new city with a special focus on tier 2 cities, and every month we explore incredible work and creative ideas that are abundant over there. We've conducted 7 editions across the nation so far, and for the 8th edition we have headed to Coimbatore, and we are extremely excited about this city. And safe to say, design debate is absolutely taking the architectural fraternity by storm. So, welcome to this evening replete with knowledge sharing, and let us have a huge round of applause as we begin the evening and start off what is Architect and Interiors India presents Design Debate Coimbatore edition. So let me call on stage Mr. Indrajit Sauji, Director of ITP Media, to deliver the opening address. Please give him a huge round of applause.
Vanakkam, Ungal Elorium, Varavirkiriyan. Coimbatore, known as the textile capital or also as the Manchester of the South, a city known to have existed from before the 2nd century AD, ruled by the great kings known to promote architecture and construction, right from the Cholas, Rashtrakutas, Chalukyas, Pandyas, Hoysalas, and of course the Vijayanagar kings. There can't be a better place to discuss on today's theme, tradition versus technology. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this Coimbatore edition of Design Debate. This is our first ever event in Coimbatore, and it's overwhelming to see you all in person and to see the hall full to its capacity. I am humbled by the warmth and love extended to us. A big thank you to our curator tonight, Mr. Sharif Mohammed Ji, who readily agreed to put this all together for us. A huge round of applause for him. And a round of applause for each one of you for being here today and making this event possible. Past couple of years have been really challenging for all of us, and especially for the design and construction vertical. Hopefully we have left the worst behind. Fortunately, we have all gathered here today to debate on future of design and how we can strike a balance between tradition and technology. Well, technology versus tradition, whenever this argument comes up, it's tough to make a decision, since both sides arguably have justifiable explanations. I personally believe that tradition and technology go hand in hand and are inseparable. The technologies that our ancestors have developed and have adopted have become traditions today. For example, Vastu, it's a technology of the past, and we have best of the historic monuments existing till date as the testimony to this technology of the past, which today we call tradition. Today we are talking about metaverse. It's the latest in technology. Or is it similar to what we have been talking about in Advaita Vedanta since ages? There are many such examples of the amalgamation between technology and tradition. Let's hear it from the experts in the field today. We at Architect and Interiors India wanted clear answers, so to settle things once and for all, we pitted the doyens against the next gens to find out who wins, tradition or technology, or do they take a midway. So let's hear it out from our esteemed panelists, which side they are on. A big thank you to Dorma Kaba, our category partner, Bostik, our exhibit partner, Blue Star, our HVAC partner, Mercedes-Benz TVS Sundaram Motors, our luxury partner. They have lovely vehicles on display in the lawn area. The team will be happy to help you in case if you want to check out. Thank you. I am falling short of words to express my thanks and gratitude to all of you for this warmth, enthusiasm and support you all have extended to us and to our team. Without further ado, let me hand over the forum to Alicia. Sit back, relax and enjoy your evening.
Built on trust.
Our guest of honor. And our guest of honor for the evening is someone who needs absolutely no introduction. He is the esteemed and honorable T.S. Ramani Shankar, Chief Architect and Senior Partner at Shankar and Associates. He has been practicing architecture since 1967 and has a staggering body of work to his name across 55 phenomenal years of practice. Winner of Architect of the Year more than once, he has been recognized repeatedly by both the Tamil Nadu and Kerala chapters. He has been honored with the 2003 Vocational Excellence Award by the Rotary Club. And setting himself apart, he is a multifaceted genius who can work across niches of architectural design with ease. He has realized built forms across multiple scales, from low-cost houses to entire townships, and his gravitas simply cannot be put into words. So, without further ado, I would now like to invite him to the stage to recognize his immense contributions to the field of architecture with a gesture from our behalf. Please give him a huge round of applause.
Thank you, Alicia and Indrajit, for calling me this evening as a guest of honor. It's my pleasure to stand before this audience consisting of all young architects and other associates. It has been half a decade and more since I started my professional practice, and I go on and on. I have not stopped it yet. The topic today is tradition and technology. I'm not able to understand it. Did traditional architecture did not have any technology? What was that time available technology was adopted in that. When I started my practice in 1967, there were no computers. We used to drafting board and T-square, we used to draft. We used to do our views and perspectives with our hand. I believed the hand is the extension of the brain. When I discuss with a client, I believe speech is the extension of the mind. When the drawings went for building, we always thought is the extension of the act. All these things were going on and on and on. Things changed. I will not call the technology changed. The tradition changed. In the 60s, what was tradition? It was not a tradition in 70s, and they call 60s a tradition, 70s is modern. In 80s, they call 70s as a tradition. They call 80s as a modern, and a technologically savvy. And it went on and on. Today, what they call, my architecture, what I did in 1960s, they call it, oh, it's a traditional architecture. But human behavior is same. If we take a residence, we live, we cook, we sleep, we invite guests, we play, we enjoy, we listen to music, we interact. Is there any change between 60s and today? Nothing. Thought has changed. With family, we were there in outside abroad, our annual holiday. Whole family was there. My grandchildren were there. My children were there. They were taking the choicest food, which I have not known at all. I have not. They took me, Siddhartha is sitting, and they say, we go to Vaga Mama. I know Mama separately, I know Vaga separately. I didn't know what is put together. We went there, they ordered various things. But when we landed in India, my granddad wanted Parpu Sal. Basic thoughts is not easy tradition. Basic thoughts have not changed. Palate has not changed. The concept has not changed. What you want has not changed. The love has not changed. But should architecture change? Yes. They want to see a new form. But fundamental things, function dictating a form and form dictating a character, has not changed at all. That is how the architecture developed every year, but year after year. And in our office, we work there on modern thoughts and how you are doing the form and how you do the shape. Ultimately, what is required is when a housewife says, this is my kitchen, it's my drawing room. When a child says, it's my house, you are successful. When a student in the school says, this is my school, and the teacher says, this is my school, you are successful. If somebody says, this is my office, I am proud about it, you are successful. As the world changes, thought has to change. To be static, you've got to be dynamic. What you want today, tomorrow will dictate. What you want tomorrow, day after tomorrow will dictate. We've got to travel with time. And there is no point in arguing tradition is good or technology is good. What is today's technology is not tomorrow's technology. What is today's tradition is not tradition tomorrow, but it's yesterday. We work on today, but we've got to think of yesterday. We cannot forget about it. We've got to expect tomorrow. I wish the debate excellent procedure, and I can vouchsafe, as Indrajit asked, we can never settle with a judgment. Architecture does not go on a judgment on a debate. It goes on judgment of individual. What you like, you like. What color you like. What shape you like. What function you like. Architecture will go on as people desire. And the technology is there to support. And the traditional will remain as fundamental thing. It can never change. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Only one thing I would like to present to Alisha and Indrajit. I want to tell you that when you invite a forum like this, I have never met Alisha. I'm sure that you arrived this morning there. I wish you had shown up to our office or to my home. Say, I am Alisha, I invited you, and invite us. Not through paper, not through the electronic medium. There is some tradition which is required, even though technology has supported you. That is our culture. I doubt whether you met any one of the panelists you have not met. I don't think I will appreciate it. Whatever technology we take, there is fundamental tradition which is required. Going and inviting people and knowing somebody, meeting person to person and shaking hand, which is the warmth which travels. I wish Coimbatore architects require this kind of treatment, I would say. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Nice meeting you, at least knowing you whom you are today, this morning. Thank you very much.
Jai Prakash N, Senior Manager Sales and Territory Business Lead, Domakaba. And Mr. Indrajit is already on stage to do the honors of the felicitation. A huge round of applause for our guest of honor and his very candid speech.
I'm glad I could handle this.
I would now like to call Mr. Aravan Prasad, Manager, Architectural Specifications at Domakaba. Here's a presentation on Domakaba's body of work. Please, a huge round of applause for him.
We create buildings, cities, places where individuals come together and build communities. These are places to connect, stay, and love. Places to care for the generations that came before us while welcoming the next. Places to let our children grow and learn. Or rest. For every place where we get inspired, create memories. For every place where we build a career or start a new chapter. For every place that shapes a community. For every place that matters.
Thank you, Alicia. A warm welcome to one and all present here. Myself, Arvind, representing on behalf of Domakaba. We are very much thankful for the team IDP for giving this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this design debate, Coimbatore event. One main thing which we need to highlight here is people present here, most of them would have been aware of Doma, which is pioneered in door hardware solutions. But many would have been wondering what is Kaba. So Kaba is a Swiss-based company, more into the digital platform. So henceforth we are all called Domakaba. A short video on what is Domakaba. 1862, Franz Bohr founds a company which is called Kaba, and 1908, Rudolf Mankel and William Dawkins found Dawkins and Mankel in Ennepetal, which is later called Dorma. You can see in 1934 there is a reversible of patented keys. Nowadays people talk about these patented keys. 1950, we are actually entering into door closure market. 1960s, the invention of push button locks. Again, people now talk about this kind of push button locks. Again, the tradition versus the future generation comes in. 1962, the production of first automatic systems. 1976, Dormo entering into the glass product portfolio. 1978, the establishment of production facilities in USA, Brazil. 1995, Kaba is actually a Swiss stock listed company. In 2000, there is an acquisition of Unican. By that, it's a Canadian brand. By this, Kaba becomes a global leader in the security locks, hotel locks. 2002, again there is a acquisition of Upe, Modern Fold. Dorma becomes a good partition system company. 2009, we have got the self-boarding gates. Now people talk about these self-boarding gates. And this is at 2015, Dorma becoming Doma Kaba, a huge top 3 player in access control, security solutions and the services. The comprehensive product portfolio is now available from a single source. We are Dorma Kaba and even the legacy continues. Well, we have got wide range of product offerings in the market. You can see there are 2 different product segments. One is the access solutions. The other one is the key and wall solutions. We have got in access solutions, we have got these mechanical key systems. Many people are aware like mechanical keys are like your door hardware solutions, and we do have I-secured patented key solutions. When I say I-secured patented key solutions, the keys cannot be copied. So those kind of solutions can be offered by Dharma Kaba. Door hardware, pioneered in door hardware solutions. We can offer solutions to any kind of doors. Doors may be a metal door, timber door, glass door. All type of doors, hardwares can be given by Dharma Kaba. We have got interior glass systems. So wherever there is a glass, to hold the glass you require hardware to support the glass or to hold the glass. So we are present in all the places wherever you require the glasses to be held over. Like say for an example, it starts from your facade. We offer wide range of solutions like with the spider fittings and entry to the building. Inside the building we have got the acoustic partitions, the fixed partitions. In the residence we can give you a shower cubicles and it continues. Entrance systems. Nowadays people, after this pandemic, people are more concerned about these entrance solutions. People wanting for an hygienic, safe and secured solution one, and ease of convenience is another option. So we offer solutions. These are all automated solutions. We can give you automated solutions for swing door, sliding doors. Sliding doors, you would have visited many of the airports, most of the airports in the country. We are proud enough to say it is with Dharma Kaba operators, which is welcoming you all. Similar to that, we do have the swing door operators. People now talk about the swing door operators after this pandemic. But this was there with Dharma Kaba almost 25 years back. And the lodging systems, part of Kaba solution, we offer hotel hospitality segment, hotel locks, online, offline solutions. We have got safe locks for your safes, ATM machines. This is a different product portfolio. Maybe many of the architects may not be interested in this particular product. There is one more segment which Dharma Kaba is present, is electronic access and data. We do have full-fledged access control solutions. Say it online, offline, standalone system or an online system, we can offer solutions for electronic access control. Main part which needs to be highlighted here is the services. Majority of the company, what they do is they will be relying on their third-party service team. But we are proud enough to say that Dharma Kaba has got their own service team. It is not that we have it in one particular location. It is present in almost every part of the country which we are present. The other solutions which we offer is key and wall systems. In this we can give you acoustic movable partitions. So partitions can be your sliding folding partitions. Fortunately, the Radisson Blue, the acoustic partitions is done by Dharma Kaba. You can actually visually see it. And the other one is the skyfold, which I was mentioning, which is acoustic partition which goes into the ceiling. So even that kind of solutions can be offered. And last but not the least, the key systems. So we offer key making machines as well. Say for an example, Maruti globally uses Kaba's machines to manufacture their keys. So that is one product segment, may not be of interest. So this is how Dharma Kaba has been present in the global market and Indian market as well. But as the time as we are running short of the time, I will just take you one little concept what Dharma Kaba wanted to highlight here. Nowadays people talk about the barrier-free solutions. So I'll just take you normally what is barrier-free solutions? Like having equality at all places. So how we operate a door in a similar way, even the differently abled, even the children or the elderly person has to operate a door. So for that we do have a solution to make it an inclusive design. Nowadays architects wanting an inclusive design because the codes demands for it. A short video on what is barrier-free.
Solutions from Dharma Kaba. A barrier-free world for everyone. Coping with everyday life isn't always easy, especially if barriers are placed in our way. And we mean that literally. Many people experience that almost on a daily basis. For children, seniors, or people with physical limitations, doors are often the enemy. Getting through them often requires a lot of time, energy, and effort. Barrier-free design is essential for a person's independence and freedom. and now also legally required. With our products and solutions, we want to create an environment that is friendly, livable, and accessible for everyone. Whether in public buildings or a hospital, in hotels, in offices, or within your own four walls. A barrier-free world for everyone.
Right. In the video, whatever the solutions we have seen is all more automated in nature. So people may be wondering like, so it's all automated, how about the manual doors? For that, we do have a solution which is a cam action door closure, which has been invented by Dharmakaba, in fact in 1960s. The solution, what it offers is, it is not the product which is being manufactured by Dharmakaba and we are selling to the market. It is based upon the codes, the Right of Persons with Disability Act 2016, this is an act from India. Even BS 3300 demands for it, and the document M says, like all these entry, staircases, doors, glazing, whatever it is, there should be a periodical accessibility to be conducted by all the officials to know that the door or the building is accessible for everyone. And also, it says that the force which you are going to apply to open a door, say for an example, there is a door and you are going to apply to open a door, the force which is required to open the door is less than 20 newtons. So it is not what Dharmakaba says, it is as per NBC, National Building Codes. It should be only 20 newtons, and one more point, it says the door handle should not be more than 5 newtons, the force applied. So this can be achieved in two different ways. One, you can use a lesser capacity door closure. Say for an example, you have EN1 size door closure. You use it in a door so that you will get a lesser opening force so that you can open the door. But the challenge here is the door will not close back. It will stay against the pressure. So the other solution which we offer is Dharmakaba, the cam action door closure. It has been tested, proved that the opening force of the door is less than 20 newtons. So that is where all the entrance of the building which we are actually going ahead with cam action door closures. You can see, apart from that, manual solutions, the automated solutions can be, we are into the lobby solutions. We are actually entering into conquer the lobby solutions, something like the barrier, swing type of barriers. You can see the mechanical doors, how a child can open a door with ease. Apart from that, the solutions which we offer is mechanical key systems, the eye-secured solutions which I was mentioning. In this, just to highlight, we can actually offer you solutions. This is 1 ohm, 1 key. If I say 1 ohm, 1 key, with 1 ohm, you can operate the entire residence. Say it a garage door, say it a wooden door, say it a cupboard door, and one more thing, say it an electronic door. Yes, it's an electronic door. You can see here, there is a digital lock. Even this lock can be operated with your mechanical key. There will be a chip embedded on top of the key. And these are all reversible and the patented solutions which we offer. And we are into the demountable partitions, the fixed partition solution. Many people are there in the industry in the demountable partitions. But one thing which we need to highlight here is, we not only give a product, whatever Dharmakaba gives, there should be some kind of credibility on what we are selling. So these are all the three parameters which we can offer. One is the stability, Main thing, in a fixed partition, when there is a door next to it, you use it frequently, there will be a wobbling. Then you have to have a stable product which we can offer, and it has been tested. It's a third-party test certificate, and we can give you a EPD certificate. So if it is a LEED building, LEED rated building or a gold building, so it adds points to your building design, and we can give you the acoustics also. So nowadays people wanting to have a set up an office. So this is the demountable partition is the order of the day for that. So we can give you designs, shapes, designs, architects, designers like the most. It comes in black. Even the hardware, complete solutions can be in black. Last but not the least, we actually give you two access solution. So digital door locks is one different product portfolio of Dhammakaba. In that we give you a solution. True Access is a software which can be integrated with your digital locks, security cameras, IP cameras, and the doorbell. So any part of the globe you are sitting, you can operate your door. And best part of this, you can actually share a one-time password to your customers or the guests who is coming to your residence. It is not that you have to share your key. You may be having some kind of a password. So if you share your password, it is already shared. So you have to change the password every now and then when your guest comes. So one-time password can be shared to your guest. He can actually use that one-time password and you can enter your residence. So that kind of advanced technology which we can offer in these solutions. So few digital door locks. So there are a lot of products with Dhammakaba which we need to discuss in detail just to understand the architects or the designers' perspective. Based upon this, we have done a lot of R&D behind. We have got a lot of products into the market. So thank you for giving this opportunity, and please do visit us our store. It will be we can actually discuss in detail. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad, for that engrossing presentation. Moving on, I would like to introduce our dear moderator, Mr. Sharif Muhammad, doctoral researcher at the University of Naples, Italy, in the Department of Architecture. Bringing incredible academic prowess to this evening, architect Muhammad Ali Sharif bridges academics and practice seamlessly, having held notable positions such as the director of the Sassi Creative School of Architecture, while practicing also as the principal for MS Chandan Associates in the past. He is currently enrolled as a doctoral researcher at the Department of Architecture at the University of Naples Federico II, Italy. And as a moderator, he will be paving the path for both our doyens and our next-gen panelists today for what I'm sure will be an absolutely captivating session. So please put your hands together. A huge round of applause for our curator and moderator, Architect Sharif.
A very good evening and warm welcome to all the lovely people gathered here. Thanks especially to the guest of honor, Architect Ramani Shankar, for his august presence and setting the right tone for this debate, discussion, and future exploration of a very valid theme of tradition and technology. I wouldn't say versus, but tradition and technology. Thanks also to the organizers, sponsors, guests, panelists, the doyens and the next gen, and participants for enabling this design debate today. Right from my early days as an architecture student in the mid-90s, and to this day, I continue to debate this technology and tradition on a regular basis, both in practice earlier and in academia, with my own little creative self. And I'm sure you've all been there, you've all experienced the same thoughts. And you continue to negotiate this equation every day in your practice, in your research, and also in academia. And like you, and on your behalf, audience, I raise many questions here to the panelists as a prelude to this debate. Is this equation heavily in favor of technology today? Is it reducing tradition to mere superficial ornamentation or symbolic representation? Have we failed to capitalize on the design traditions of our region that were culturally rich, contextual, and climate responsive? Is tradition now seeking a revival through the exploration of ancient practices that were once integrated with nature, low on energy, and simple in structure and form? Are new technologies mere manifestations of simulation and virtual realities, or are they identities of the present culture, of more resource efficiency, of providing numerous design alternatives, as well as exploration of traditional concepts and solutions? What can technology do then to retain and sustain communities of traditional craftsmen who are involved in the design and construction of buildings? Do traditional methods hold relevance in today's times, given that our places, our thoughts have changed, like architect Ramesh mentioned, have changed. Our thoughts have changed, have become more diverse in nature, and our spaces are the more reflective of the current needs then. Does technology address that? And by technology, do we mean only digital tools, visual simulation, modeling, or are we looking at a scope way beyond that? By tradition, do we mean simple forms? Do we mean forms of the past, ornamentation of the past, or compliance to Vastu, or are we looking at way beyond? Are all technologies Western driven and hence irrelevant in non-Western societies like Coimbatore? Or are we learning from tradition and promoting and improving indigenous technologies? Are traditional methods then refined and sacred, but are they still open for futuristic exploration and evolution? So these are the questions I'm sure the panelists have in mind. We've kind of also shifted this debate from the conventional method of pitting two sides against each other, trying to prove a point. We've kind of shifted there slightly on an oblique manner. I'll tell you how. But before that, the organizers have done their part. They formed two panels comprising industry stalwarts on the Doyens panel, as well as fresh, professional, young architects in the next gen panel, and you'll find creative, enthusiastic ideas coming out from their work and from their thoughts. We will try to attempt to evaluate and elevate this debate a notch higher to see through these finer nuances of both technology and tradition in architecture and design. This debate is not just about the notions of tradition and technology, but the wide spectrum that exists and operates in between them, and the creative permutations and combinations, and the vast number of narratives and opportunities it presents to designers and architects. And all these people, creative people on our panels today, will deliberate exactly upon that. And I'm also sure they will share their insights on how they negotiate this tradition versus technology, or tradition and technology, in designing their projects. What forms the basis for their ideas? What forms the basis for their logical reasons and judgments? Where they situate their design practice and philosophy within this spectrum, within this continuum? That's something we'll probably get an insight of. So just to elaborate a little about how we will work through this, each panelist gets an initial 5 minutes to talk through and walk through their thoughts. We have enabled visuals for our better understanding, and later all the panelists get to discuss views and counter views in a very rapid round for the sake of keeping this debate on schedule and ensuring that everyone gets dinner on time, especially during the weekend. We'll try to try to ensure that the time is utilized to the best in the best manner, and allow all panelists to speak. And time permitting, we'll also get questions from the audience, which we can then pass on to the panelists and get their opinion as well. So I'm really excited, and I can sense the excitement in this floor. So let's hear them out. Let's start with the next gen panelists and then proceed on to the Doyen's panel. Shall we? Okay. Thank you very much.
A specialization in emergent technologies and design from the Architecture Association London. Architect Arvind. I also call upon Architect Vidya Srinivasan, founder Vesta Architects. Her firm believes in designing symbiotic spaces which honor the environment and the inhabitant. I invite Architect Venkatalakshmi, Principal Architect, Interface Architecture. She specialized in landscape architecture from SPA New Delhi. Architect Mohan Raj, Principal Architect, Purism Architecture, and his ideology is on structure and material with climate responsiveness and energy efficiency. Last on this panel, but not the least, and quite a popular young architect these days, Architect Raghav, co-founder and CEO A+R Architecture, who holds a specialization in advanced architecture from Barcelona. Okay, so we'll start with Architect Arvind Kumar to talk about his thoughts and his take on technology and tradition.
So hi, good evening everyone present here. So first, let's ask this question, what is technology? Technology is all about applied science, the application of scientific principles to serve the practical needs of humanity. So currently there are a lot of technological breakthroughs that is shaping the architecture industry. So I think Sharif sir already named a few, the tools, the modeling softwares, the presentation tools, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. So these are all shaping the architecture industry as never seen before. Yeah. So me and my team, we try to stay on the edge of the state-of-the-art technology and to deliver sensible and appealing outputs. So I'll just take you through the slides quickly. So if you're looking at the first slide, so the project name Membrane Plus. So this was during my post-grad time. It was a collaborative project. I had an opportunity to work with professionals from various regions of the world. So the ultimate intent of the project relied on material system exploration. So here we wanted to create a composite structure combining two different materials. So it's a composite membrane structure. So we used timber and then we used latex. So the idea was to pre-stress the latex and top lay the timber with different patterns. So in order we can achieve the doubly curved or anti-clastic surfaces. So what happened is initially we did some digital simulations. If you see that colorful diagrams over there, those simulations are named as finite elementary analysis. They are predominantly used in the automotive industry to optimize the surfaces. So from here we understood how we can decide on the size of the openings on the surface. So based on that we created patterns to lay over the latex and then we get the doubly curved surfaces. So this was completely process driven. We were not thinking about any application until the experiments were going on. We also had an opportunity to work with robotic fabrication. But due to time constraint, we couldn't use the robot for the mainstream pre-stretching the latex, but we could use it for painting or and applying the glue on the timber. So finally, so if you look at if you could able to see at the bottom, so those were the fabricated panels. So those were finally used for the function that happened in college. So we used it as a ceiling installation. Yeah. So, yeah, this was focusing more on the material systems and fabrication techniques. So next, the next slide, I'm just going to be talking about generative design tools. How are we using this generative design tools and employing algorithms in our design process? So I'm just running a simulation, if you can see at the top. So here the environmental forces completely design your geometry. So what we wanted to do here is very simple. We just wanted to understand the orientation of the louvers, in what order it has to be oriented in order to achieve an effective shading beneath the facade. So we ran simulations and we had a lot of iterations through which we came up with a product. So here at the bottom you can see a project which we completed in 2019. The project named Tilt. It's a combination of perforated panels and louvers. The sizes were completely dictated by algorithms and the natural forces, which was solar radiation analysis. Yes. So next, moving on to the next slide. So this is one of our recent project. It's a residential project of 3,500 square feet. So we are using the project named Terramask. The name itself speaks. Like in the front, we completely using exposed bricks and traditional jalis arranged in a parametric fashion in a 90-degree and 45-degree configurations. So it's a completely load-bearing structure. So here what happened was we represented a lot of renders and all those stuff, but client couldn't grab it easily. So that we thought we should be making a physical model. So with physical model, thanks to laser cutting tools and 3D printing, it made our works much easier. So we were able to do the model quickly and deliver it to our client, and client then could easily able to understand, appreciate the configuration of spaces. So the 3D printing, we 3D printed the facade components because it was too intricate to model it through your hand. So the 3D facade was completely 3D printed. Yeah. So the next, it's one of our recent project. We are working on a 2 lakh square feet affordable housing project. In this, since it's a huge scale, we didn't just want to give flat renders. So client will be kind of puzzled how to understand the scale and stuff. So we used virtual reality to better communicate our design. So so now we are using more of VR in our interior projects as well, and we are trying our hands-on with immersive VR as well. So these are the layers of state-of-the-art technologies that helps and drive our design process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. I think you set the right tone by talking about how technology actually enhances, experimentation right from the design stage, which I think is something we'll talk about later. So next panelist, Architect Mohan Raj.
Good evening. I'm talking about technology oriented, how it supports the architecture and how helpful for the traditional way. The traditional ideas, it will develop by the technology. It supports the much more better, for example, free forms. So traditional ways, some kind of the limitless will be there. So the technology will support, so limitless idea, new form, and organic shape kind of a thing, it will support. Some of software kind of thing. So one of the examples for parametric design. So parametric design, it is developed by some of the software, Rhinoceros, Grasshopper, an easy way to make free form. It's from the organic shape. The traditional design is from organic shape, and how we can develop from the traditional way. It will help by the software. So it's one of the idea. And traditional way, some of the limitless for design oriented and material oriented, but the technology will develop that materials and limitless. So one of that idea that the exposed concrete we made the traditional way, that is polished on the top. Another one is we made the traditional new way, easy way to make a materials. That technology developed the same as new material, new finishes, it will develop. So and some of that wooden finish kind of thing is that pergola, the normal pergola will be steel. But one of the clients want that new technology used to new design, but it's not to be a normal way. So we develop the ideas to use that technology. And the technology, it will brings that alternate materials from the traditional way. So normally we use the plywood kind of the traditional wooden kind. But nowadays the technology makes alternate materials. One of that steel cabinet, this will be a SS cabinet. it's alternate design source for the alternate material from the traditional way. And some of the reference images for that, the dough height kind of a thing, the normal it was a limited there, but the technology brings that limitless design and your ideas thought, and the technology brings new finishes from the traditional material finish. The traditional which is only the same finish we can, but in the using of technology, it will support the alternate finish and new finish from the regular one. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Mohanraj. We were talking about the spectrum, and so he's kind of shown his inclination towards which part of the spectrum and how technology actually enhances complex forms and supports kind of, re-looking at traditional forms and elements with new construction techniques. Thank you, Architect Mohanraj. Next, Architect Raghav.
Splendid evening to one all present here. I would like to thank ITP Media India Limited, Indrajit Ji and Alisha for having us here. A+R stands for not my name, there's a meaning behind it. It's architecture plus research. So we have quite an interesting research team, been working for years. Actually, I personally did my research in Spain, and then we have researchers from NIT, Durgapur, and sort of we focus on research, and we have been focusing on research for a long time, and now we have started to implement that research onto a project. So this is going to be an overlook on what we're trying to implement from our research studio to our architecture projects. Starting on from Casa Roca, this is quite an interesting project where we sort of have a dialogue between vernacular architecture with parametric style in it. So we coined a new term called vernametric architecture, where what we were doing back in Spain with robots, with drones, we are trying to do that with traditional craftsmen and try to bring bring back from the past for the future. And so we have sort of taken cues from our past, say from ancient architecture, what we were great with, and from our parametric tools, we sought to understand how can we implement it with the vernacular materials, which is sort of environmental friendly, and you sort of creates a passive cooling from like pioneers like Laurie Baker, where we have learned rat rod bond, and we have sort of recycled a lot of materials like glass bottles. We've sort of given a new value to that, and we've tried to reduce the carbon footprint. And at the end of the day, as architects or as designers, what is the value we give back to the society? It is not the drawings, it is not the money we make. I think at the end of the day, what value we give back to the society it can be by using technology, it can be using traditional techniques, but how this particular structure camouflages with the nature, how sort of it reduces the carbon footprint is what we focus on. And this is another interesting project we did, I think 2 years back, where we have not, there were 800 trees in this particular site, and we were very conscious in not even cutting one particular coconut tree in this. The entire structure was planned around it, and one particular sector we are focusing on is affordable housing and affordable structures by using latest material. Like this is a new upbringing, a new sector of research. What we're focusing on is compressed and stabilized earth blocks, which don't require a sort of plastering. It does not require a lot of mortar, and it reduces the cost of the structure by 30%. And for commercial buildings, for resorts, for farmhouses, where you don't have to spend more money on it, and you won't believe the entire structure the walls were raised in 7 days. and we were just focusing on the other aspects where to bring in more nature into the house. And there are other projects like in hospitality where we use a lot of parametric tools to reduce the material consumption cost, and we focus on how do we integrate steel technology, like how do we use prefabricated elements in renovating public buildings, in bringing in new architecture, styles where we sort of blend with materials. Like you don't see the steel actually, but with the help of steel, we sort of reduce the time of construction, and you sort of it gives you flexibility to sort of design back in the studio. And these are other interesting projects where we have used steel and parametric tools to sort of cut down summer sun directly falling inside the hospital. And now the recent projects, back in COVID, we wanted to give something back to the society as well. So during the first COVID, we were seeing doctors sweating a lot when they were performing with these suites. So we had a challenge of designing the particular suite for doctors, and we came up with using the parametric tools to allow in air to flush and gush in. At the same time, these openings were so nano that you don't allow an infection to penetrate. And they had, it had a face shield, it had USB ports, it had, to connect with your phones. And we always focus on giving back something to the society. And this is back in our research. Like this one was 3D printed with a similar robot like our friend Arvind had presented. So these robots printed these structures. Now we are focusing on making this into a mass customization project where we are focusing on 3D printing concrete blocks. Right now I'm not able to show the output of it, but it's quite something interesting cooking up back in with the present government, where they are trying to sort of give affordable housing in a massive scale. So imagine 1,000 to 1,500 houses getting 3D printed in 1 month. So that is quite possible with this sort of technology. And the other one, what you see is a futuristic technology where this is the first 3D, first interface, flexible, translucent, flexible, and adaptable on a large scale, where we have used graphene. And so this was quite an interesting project which we worked with IIT Italy back with IAC. So graphene is something which is a nanoparticle which is being used by Samsung, by Apple, by Google for creating flexible interfaces. So we were the first in the world to use it on architecture and to create a skin which is flexible. Imagine a building, imagine a wall where you have an iPad spread over it and you have a total interface connection from user. So here we are not looking at implementing this idea immediately, but I think in the next 5 to 10 years we are looking at a huge revolution where there are not going to be interfaces. For example, say your Dorma Kaaba is going to get integrated onto your building material. So what would be the output and the product? So we are looking at integrating technology and material and making it one product. And that is quite possible with this material. And so other projects where we sort of implement these tools are like the robotic fabrication of these mapping exercises, what we do to create facades. And we are quite happy that these eco-friendly projects get recognized more than the parametric or the sort of what the technology plays in. They're more interested in covering the eco-friendly project where we sort of take in
traditional architecture style and bringing in technology rather than just focusing on technology. So after a lot of experiments, we have understood that people want a solution. People are looking for architects, not for fancy buildings, not for fancy forms, not for a fancy product. They want something as a value addition to their lifestyle, something which is quite affordable as a service. And third, it should blend with their lifestyle. I think that is something what people accept. And we're quite happy, and we thank the media for covering us. And to talk about our studio, quite a lot of architects here. Working at Blizzard is sort of, we sort of celebrate all our events, we sort of have fun at Blizzard, and I think the products and the sort of designs which are born out of our studio is because of the team. I don't think I'm sitting here as a representative, but back there are people even now who are sort of focusing on creating something new, creating something exciting for the clients. And we do celebrate even a small event Black at A+R. I would wrap up with this note, and I would like to thank my mentor, my guru, Professor Dr. Sharif sir, for having me on board with this panel. And I would like to thank each and everyone here, in the audience, being patient and witnessing our work. I would like to thank each and everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raghav. There's no running away. There's still a rapid fire to happen. So we'll keep the thanks for the end of the session. But interesting point here is the kind of dialogue that you spoke about between how vernacular architecture and parametric modeling. We'll come to that in the next round. We'll talk a little more about this dialogue and the kind of cues from the past that technology enables to see real-time development. We'll talk about that. I'd like to pass on the mic to Architect Venkatalakshmi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So initially when Alicia invited me to this event with 7 years of landscape architecture practice and 17 years of overall design practice, I was really wondering which generation of architect I belong to. But then all the senior panelists were kind enough to consent to be part of the event, and I got to end up here. So that's a smiling eye how I ended up here. So when I try to assess my practice, whether it's rooted to tradition or is it imbibed with a contemporary design process, it gave me a lot of insights, and I wish to share some of them here today evening. So landscape always creates a setting for a building or architecture. When we try to look at English Renaissance buildings, the garden is humble. There are no tall elements like trees. There are a lot of terraces which sort of build the experience to the building. So landscape is grounded, it creates a setting to the building. Whereas when we take Chinese landscapes, which is developed with Zen philosophy, where one tries to explore oneself, the landscape form is more of organic, where when someone ends up finding a building, so it creates a sort of suspense. So these two examples, one can understand that landscape creates a lot of varied setting for the building. So across history, till contemporary era, through landscape, we try to weave a fabric where architectural edifices are put up in a geometry. So we work with architects of different era. We have worked with senior practices like Sundar Sir's, where we pick up a lot of learning, and we had the pleasure of working with young practice like Vidya's. These two projects belong to two of the area where we had partnered with both of them. You can see that, like the earlier project, the landscape responds to the build form, where there is curvilinear geometry, which is very evident in the building. We try to resonate that, and the kind of axis, the main approach to the open air theatre, builds, strongly connects with the entrance of the building. So, and the other project, we had tried to respond to the contemporary architecture which she had set up, where the buildings had rugged, edges, where it was like very minimal. So we tried to respond to that. And when we try to look at and study the geometry of our traditional landscapes, one can understand that it's not landscape art, it's more of landscape architecture. So when we try to read something from the Mughal gardens, people think that the Mughal gardens is based on the mythology of Char Bagh, 4 gardens. It's rooted to the Islam mythology of 4 worlds, 4 rivers of life and 4 lives to eternity. But it's not just that. The gridiron pattern of Char Bagh is, facilitates efficient irrigation. And when we try to look at how people sited Taj Mahal on the river of Yamuna, and then how they sited Shalimar Bagh along the Dal Lake, one will understand that they try to capture the drainage pattern of the water along its natural drainage, and they've actually utilized the flow of the water to create and irrigate their gardens. So I would say that any building or landscape to be eternal, and to be sustainable, it needs to be very, very responsive to nature. So here are some examples with our projects and how we have, tried to be responsive to the site factors, on-site factors like topography, hydrology, and how we try to, manage the storm water along the natural drainage pattern and create an overflow system and connect it to the nearby canal. And there are a lot of theories which are coming up in sustainable practice in architecture. But when we try to look at it, in a landscape terms, people think going with native species is just a sustainable practice. It's not just that. So how do we create sustainable open spaces, not just with planting, but also with the materials and kind of techniques what we use. So that is an Ayurveda resort which we have put up in Etimade, where we try to use a lot of natural materials like cow dung plasters for seating areas, and muram soil we had used rather than paver blocks for the roads. And when we try to be responsive to the site, development in technology facilitates a landscape architect to dictate anything on the site, especially when we are working on a smaller scale like courtyard scale, where we are talking about a space which is enclosed by building. That's the smaller scale in landscape architecture. So we have the freedom to play around and create the geometry what we want to, what we can really do. So that facilitates creating landscapes in arid area where we can transplant and we can efficiently use the irrigation systems. And also when we are talking about how landscape adds on to building, I am thinking aloud here that I see architecture as a static form where landscape is a really dynamic thing. Anyone who had visited Rashtrapati Bhavan across seasons would agree that the building looks really beautiful in March, where the flowers are full in bloom in spring. So with dynamic landscape which flowers over different seasons, one can actually create a sort of dynamism in the experience of the building as well. And also how the landscape, when we hand it over, and the landscape architect needs to have a larger vision on how it matures into a really complete picture. We need to have a real complete picture. The same space transforms over a period of time, and when the architect hands over the building to the client, it doesn't, he or she can have a control on how it can transform over a period of time. But then with the landscape, that's really difficult. So when a landscape architect hands over the project, he or she needs to have a real vision on how it's going to transform over a period of time and mature, and how, especially when you're working with public landscapes, how does users, stakeholders, react or interact with the landscape elements. This particular project, the kids who visited this public landscape were in love with the flowers, and we could see no flowers next time when we visited. So that is an important aspect. So I would like to sum it up here saying, if one wishes to have a meaningful practice, one need to take a contemporary approach, strongly rooted to the deep wisdom of our tradition. With that, I conclude here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Venkata Lakshmi. There was a new dimension to to looking at tradition and technology, especially the part where we're talking about landscape as not just beyond native species and gardening, but as ecological responses in terms of extension, not just in traditional ways of approaching the landscape, but in terms of how we approach the natural systems itself that are associated with it. I think we'll come to that in a bit after giving the floor to Architect Vidya. All yours.
Yeah, well, a warm welcome to all of them. I'm Vidya. I've been practicing for 8 years, and this is my first project. So, starting off with my first project, we started off with a MSB apartment, and each apartment we took the core concept from our traditional Chettinadu houses, where they have a huge deck followed by the functions around it. And one more interesting aspect that we try to create in this is each unit is connected to another in more than one way. So all the 3 sides are exteriors and only one side is connected to another apartment. So this way we were able to connect, get the core concept from the tradition, but also use the pre-casted structures and also the modern technologies, solar panels, to make this more sustainable. The next one is the commercial complex which comes in front of this. We've tried to use the precast structure and the glass panels, so we follow this mass and void, and also give them ample lighting during the daytime, and also reduce their heat because we've used the precast structures, and also we've created a second skin, so where in between the glass and the floor plan, there's a landscape path, so that kind of acts like a second skin. Yeah, that's about the first project. The second project is the mandapam, where the client asked us to, the site, we've oriented the mandapam in such a way that from the entrance you can see the whole hall. So the focal point of the stage was from our, so the focal point is our stage, and from any point of the hall you can see the stage. And also we have a secondary, as in a corridor, bifurcating the hall so that there's more of indirect, not hot air getting inside, and indirect lighting also getting in. We've also separated the courtyard between the hall and the dining, so it acts like a spillover space. So, according to our team, we think our opinion is to derive your core concepts and values from tradition and work on technologies to make the space more breathable, livable, and more comfortable for the people to live. And that's about it.
Thank you. That was short and sweet, but interesting kind of derivative of how core traditional concepts can still be spatially configured into contemporary buildings, and how architects can actually facilitate that. I see certain commonalities between speakers when Raghav talks about the dialogue and you talk about the spatial configuration. I see that connect. Likewise, I also see that the connect between Mohan Raj and Arvind when they're talking about exploration of structure and form and new materials, at the same time looking at responses. So this is the reason why we kind of shifted this debate to cover the spectrum, this continuum. You can see just from 5 speakers, I'm sure Doin's panel is going to enhance this continuum a lot more. But I'm just going to take cues from some of your own talks to further explore these nuances. I'm going to start with Arvind again. Arvind, you spoke about experimentation with new structure and materials. Yeah, and so how does this random experimentation work, and to what extent do you think that this exploration, on say for example on a digital medium or in virtual reality actually can be translated into real design solutions and into possible kind of structures that we can see in the future.
Yeah. So with the digital tools and simulation, we can able to provide a data-driven design. So we are not just designing for aesthetical purpose. So when I'm saying I'm designing a parametric facade, it's not just about having a geometry with the different openings and saying that it's parametric. For me, parametric, it shouldn't be just from an aesthetical standpoint. It also your building should perform. So basically, it has to respond to the environmental forces. It has to respond to the wind. It has to respond to the solar radiation. It has to respond to the rainfall. So we also use these kind of tools called evolutionary algorithm, borrowed from the concept of Darwinian, Charles Darwin's concept of natural selection. So what happens is this falls under other thing called multiple criteria objective optimization. So when I'm designing something, I'm just giving some criteria saying that my building needs to have a lesser surface area. At the same time, I need maximum solar exposure, and I want my building's center of gravity to the top. At the same time, my structure has to be stable. So if you closely look at these, are all contradictory criteria. So when you impose contradictory criteria, what does this algorithm do is it will find an optimum solution somewhere in between. So it's easily possible, like evolution, how it works. It goes on like generations and generations. So over the generations, you might be able to iterate a lot of design options. So through which, with the criteria you have fed, you will be able to select a design that's kind of optimum between all the criteria you have given. So I will have a surface area of minimum. At the same time, I will have a maximum solar exposure so that I can generate more energy to my building. Or I want to optimize my building in a certain way. I could able to collect all the rainwater and direct to a particular point. That also could be done. So you need to study about the rainfall pattern. So I need to simulate that how the rainfall is falling, in which direction it's coming, and where it's accumulating, highest point, lowest point. So based on the roof of the building can be designed in such a way where all the water is directed to a particular point and you have efficient storage. So I happened to be in Indonesia during 2017. I happened to work with Ibuku Bali, bamboo. They were completely with bamboo, where I had an opportunity to work with bamboo. There I was given an opportunity, so I designed a parametric building with bamboo, where the bamboo is completely curved and arranged in a paraboloid format, so I can collect all the water and it's direct to the center. So it's not just about having the materials and arranging in or using it in a certain way itself. You can have a brick, you can arrange it in a certain pattern. You can use the same brick to arrange in a very different patterns, and these days digital tool offers us the opportunity to arrange materials in very, very different configurations. And I see a lot of architects these days exploring with brick. It's kind of intriguing to see that a lot of possibilities are coming up. I think that's definitely because of the digital tools and the simulations, where we were able to collect the data and use it in the design. And yeah, with virtual reality, sir mentioned, virtual reality is definitely you almost bring the design, the components to a closer, almost to a closer vicinity of the user. So beforehand, the design is executed, you are able to experience the design in a much closer vicinity, where you can easily spot the mistakes. So a lot of mistakes could be avoided with the technologies like virtual reality. Yeah.
I just want to take this thought a little forward in a kind of a diagonal way and ask architect Vidya, when you look at how architect Arvind explores parametric modeling and these kind of digital simulations to forms, how does that kind of differ from the spatial configurations that you are inspired, from Chettinad architecture or from the traditional style? Where do you think is the kind of difference between advanced algorithmic modeling versus assimilation from practice in terms of
spending a larger term trying to understand traditional
In the
forms?
site context, what the site demands and what the demands of the clients are, then it depends on how you use the technology to make it faster, to make it less of a more sustainable. So I think technology also plays an important role when it comes to designing, and you can make it, you can finish the project faster when it is required, right? So technology definitely helps to evolve the design in a better way.
Do you think it kind of overplays here as compared to your practice?
My personal opinion is it should go hand in hand. So taking the root cause from our tradition or the core concepts from the tradition and working with the latest technology to probably reduce the problems inside or to make the building even more better, I would say, yeah, goes hand in hand.
We'll come to interesting take here on, you spoke about clients wanting to explore traditional forms and traditional elements with new materials. So is that something that you find in this region? People are kind of still strongly connected to traditional ideas or they look at those as values for, through which architecture can actually give meaning to their lives and to their spaces?
So roof cutout will be there in a traditional way in a temple. So there is a lighting purpose and minimum ventilation. The same context we used in the roof cutout for a toilet area, for the ventilation or more lighting. But the same concept we use the technology, we use the new material. So glass and ventilation, louvers kind of thing, technology used the same concept. Another thing is material oriented. So they want the new finish but maintenance free. I don't want maintenance for a long time. So once I fit and I want forget the things, but easy to maintain. So the new materials, for example, SS, though use of the SS it will be white, but the new technology it will hide that SS. It will be a grey color, some kind of finish it will make, but it won't be look like a SS. It will be a regular MS kind of a thing, but it support that design and philosophy also. And the new technology and the materials develop that new way of the design. For example, one of my client asked for more light. I don't want, my principle always, I don't want switch on the lights before sunset, and I don't want to switch on any fan except hot summer. So I want more light and ventilation to my building to use the new material, new high openings where. So if I want that those windows will be 10 feet high, it's not easy to make a traditional way, but the new technology and the material support make me more height. If you want your 20 feet height of that window or doors, we can use.
That's very interesting actually, because the whole idea then kind of seems to stem from the fact that clients are a lot more aware about having buildings and using materials that are environmental friendly. They're looking at durability, they're looking at maintenance. There's a larger kind of thought process even from the client side, and that's precisely what Raghav, I see some of your work where you're trying to establish this dialogue between vernacular architecture. Do you think at what stage do you think this really comes in from the client side, and at what stage do you think as an architect or designer you try and imbibe those values, or do you have your own philosophy that's coming into play here?
It is both ways. It comes from maybe a spark from the site context, maybe an inspiration born out of the studio. Then at times you sort of imbibe it in the client's mind, saying that okay, how you insert a needle inside the banana, it sort of imbibe it in the client's mind, saying that okay, these are sort of sustainable concepts where we add value back to the community or to the neighborhood or to the city. Our role as architects, designers, urban designers, or master planners don't just stop within the campus. They don't stop within the studio. they extend to the world. When we, as a whole, here we have the entire fraternity, but each one has the responsibility to shape the city, shape the state, and the entire nation is looking at us. What are we doing for the future, for the next gen? As next gen architects sitting here, what are we doing which adds value, and how much can we imbibe? At the end of the day, if there's no client, there's no project. If there's no site, there's no architecture. If there's no city, there's no master plan. When we look at urban design, when we look at master plan, there is a lot of bureaucracy, there is a lot of government officials, there is a lot of debates on what percentage of sustainability, parametric architecture we provide, even on master planning, urban designing, and architecture. At the end of the day, I think it is not about stuffing in or forcefully imbibing technology into a project. We study the demand. We study, okay, say that this project requires so much of solar radiation, this project requires so much of input on sustainable aspect. This project, we have to conserve the trees and not forcefully bring that idea into a project. And but I see a lot of interesting things going on in this panel. Like each project, what we see here, there's a lot of new things being thought about. Having said that, at the end of the day, like I repeated in the presentation, is the value, what we give back. It is not the technology, it is not trying to bring in material, making it fancy with vernacular architecture style. At the end of the day, are we creating a better lifestyle? Are we creating a better city for the people to live in? Are we creating a better pedestrian-friendly neighborhood? Currently, we are designing we are designing smart city projects where we are focusing on user-friendly designs. So we are using tools to understand and algorithms to understand which sort of how can we make the city pedestrian friendly. Like in Barcelona, super blocks were created 5 years back, where we worked on car-free neighborhoods, where we worked on removing the cars from the city. I think we also worked on a similar studio where we sort of removed the cars from a city, from a neighborhood, and understood what happens if we remove cars from a particular street. And right now, happy streets are born out of that idea. In Chennai, in Coimbatore, where for an entire day or for half a day we remove cars from a street and we study how a street works. It sort of becomes a beautiful public space. So I think it is...
Sorry to interrupt here. I think we're a little digressing, but I want to come to another point that you mentioned about mass customization and production. So when we're looking at buildings that carry not just economic value and to clients and as projects, but then also as cultural spaces. So how do these projects that have mass production, having forms and elements that kind of seem to be seen throughout the city and not specifically designed or intentionally designed for certain clients, how does this really kind of then build that response or speak that dialogue?
Quite a difficult question. I think every time I interact with my professor, it's always difficult to feed him with the data. We are moving from mass production to mass customization. So industrial revolution 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 is all about mass production. So we were producing from the factories and we were assembling it at site. Now in industrial 4.0, we are moving towards industrial mass customization. So we are looking at customizing it at site for a particular culture. So if, for example, we're designing, if you're designing something in Visakhapatnam, there is a particular climate, there's a particular context, there's a culture, and we sort of feed the data into our design based on that particular context and culture. So we customize it on a massive scale. So we are moving, we have already moved into mass customization. Now we are taking in architecture to that stage with this idea.
Thank you. I'm going to extend this point, when he spoke about the site and the context to architect Venkatalakshmi, and ask her a few other leading questions from there. One is the role of landscape then in trying to, strengthen this dialogue between tradition and technology on one side. On the other side, has landscape been kind of ignored, in the contemporary era than in the past? Is the second question, and there's a third question as well, which are all
Can we go one by one, please?
Okay, I'll be kind to you. I'll try and give you these two questions to start with, and then we'll take it.
I really don't think landscape is being ignored in contemporary era, especially when Raghav was presenting, he was trying to preserve each and every tree in the site. I don't think it's being ignored. And we've been working with a lot of architects, and as I would like to point out, landscape has got three scales. So the first scale, which is garden, is open space which is enclosed by a building. And then when we're talking about the second scale, that's called landscape, where the open space that surrounds the building. And then the third scale, what we are talking about, the nature scale, which is like really large, huge, expansive open space. As landscape architect, I've been lucky enough to work till the second scale. And in my lifetime, if I get to work on the third scale, even a single project, it's going to be a lifetime project. And I would like to touch upon the project, of Mr. Prabhakar Bhagwat. He's called Father of Landscape Architecture, where he had actually revived the landscape quarry. He had recreated the ecology in that particular site, which was a barren land. The land was filled with a lot of leachate. Leachate is actually a liquid. It's a poison to the ecology of the place. When rainwater interacts with the natural rock surface, it forms leachate. So it's very detrimental to the watershed. So he had actually, identified the native species, introduced a lot of ground covers which sort of disintegrated the soil system. And this particular example where landscape architect has worked hand in hand with nature to revive that. And I'm sure with a lot of projects, which is coming up with that kind of ecological perspective in and around here in South India, I'm really hopeful that definitely landscape is not being ignored. So with that, we've been working with many architects, and in fact, they've been very particular. For example, neem tree cannot be transplanted. It doesn't survive. But when architects say this particular tree, let's preserve it. As landscape architect, we have an alternative thought saying, let's look at the sustainability part. Probably we can plant 2 or 3 trees on the other side, which will flourish in that particular site and context. And when we work with architects, we suggest a lot of changes in the interface areas where the building meets the landscape. We've been working with 2 architects over here who's been really very receptive about the ideas. And I'm really happy to see that they have this overall picture. I remember this instance. I'm an SPA Delhi product. In my first day in my classroom, one of my professor asked me this question, you have a plan which is designed by an architect and which is designed by an engineer, which is put up. Which one do you think is good in planning? We said definitely it's going to be architects. Similarly, you put up a site plan which is done by a landscape architect and an architect, we feel the same difference. It was a statement which sort of awakened, it was a statement of revealment. That was a moment of revealment where we tried to look at the site in detail. But when I got into practice, when I started working with a lot of architects, they seem to have this responsiveness towards on-site factors. So, yeah, that answers your first question.
And not just that, it also answered the question that I didn't ask you when you spoke about how, the technology is also kind of being introduced in the landscape design, We're trying to understand. Technology, again, does not necessarily mean, just that's why my very prelude said it's not just about the digital systems, but then it's about the whole gamut of applying science to resolve issues. So I see there's a lot of things that are related to the ecology, which, the landscape tries to address. And that's the kind of thought that we're looking to carry forward.
So can you also elaborate a little more then on some of the other advancements that landscape is seeing in terms of ecological restoration of nature, especially in urban areas?
Okay. Technology is a great tool, and it depends on how we use it in combination with the natural process. I would enlighten the audience on the aspect that what do you understand with the term urban forest? Many of us think that it's going to be a highly dense area in an urban scenario. No. Every single tree in an urban setup can be termed as a urban forest. Why? When there is a tree, it interacts with the nature in terms of hydrological cycle, ecological cycle, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle. You cut a tree, you're wiping off all these cycles from that area. So in an urban scenario, every single tree is really, really important. And getting back to what I was saying, the technology, how do we use it? Whether we use it in an ecological perspective, in that case, I would say in architecture, if the technology is advancing, 3 times. In landscape, it's more of 1 time because, our again and again, the technological advancement in the field of landscape architecture will root down to the tradition of the nature. So that's how, we take it forward. And so infiltration pits, stormwater, rain gardens. These are all some of the technological ensembles of landscape architecture which is being used, over a period of time. In arid region, to maintain their gardens, in many arid regions like desert areas, people have been using, in historical era, they've been using canals, which are underground water channels, to irrigate their land. They created, an oasis, a green oasis in the middle of a desert. How was that possible? So, as our chief guest, Mr. Ramani Shankar mentioned, technology has been there, the advancement has been there over a period of time. It depends upon how we see it. So in ecological sense, yes, stormwater has been an important component which has been handled, by landscape designers over a period of time. And second thing is, like when we work on the smaller scale, in garden, courtyard scale, we try to play around with the creativity. We have that freedom of, going beyond, yes, in any scale you need to be really in response to the nature and overall setting. But we can have a free hand, and we are creating, gardens in the terraces. We are doing tree transplantation, and in urban setting we are able to even create green patches, green areas like within, compact paved areas. So I think these are all the technological advancements which facilitates landscape designer to create greenery within the city environment.
That's very interesting. I'm glad we got this added dimension to the whole debate. Yeah, I'm going to hold this panel and kind of conclude it here. I'm not going to pass my concluding remarks. I'll keep that as opening remarks for the next panel. But questions from the audience, kindly please write them down and pass it to Ms. Alicia, and at the end of the Lowen's panel, we could probably take all those questions. Yeah, thank you panelists, Architect Vidya, Architect Raghav, Architect Mohanraj, Architect Arvind and Architect Venkatalakshmi. It's been, I would say, a fruitful dialogue to open this particular discussion here and you've set a really good base for the Doyens to come forward and repeat further to explore this deeper and show more nuances here to all of us. Thank you very much. We'll reassemble for the Doyens panel.
Arvind RP, Principal Architect, Arag Design Studio. Mohan Raj, Principal Architect, Futurism Architects. Raghav, Co-founder and CEO, A+R Architects. Can we keep the applause going, please? Venkatalakshmi, Founder, Interface Architecture. And Vidya Srinivasan, Founder, Vesta Architects.
ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be in midst of the creative minds of Coimbatore. When I came in, I saw this debate title, Traditions, Technology, and also heard a word, sustainability. Traditions, other synonymous, heritage, legacy. I represent two brands which are century old. One is Mercedes-Benz, the other is Sundaram Motors, which is part of TVS. Talking about Mercedes-Benz, I don't have to talk much about what Mercedes-Benz stands for. I don't have a presentation. But what I would like to highlight over here is what I heard in this hall during the Young Gen deliberations was sustainability. It so happens that Mercedes-Benz in the year 2023, they are targeting 1/3 of the entire India dealer network to be on green energy. And by 2025, the entire India network will be on 100% green energy. They are working on it like paperless office, e-waste management, even the paint thinners which are used to be recycled. So design, technology, sustainability, it's all in the DNA of Mercedes-Benz. Coming back to Sundaram Motors, we are representing Mercedes-Benz in two states, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. We are having 9 touch points. I head the operations for rest of Tamil Nadu, based out of Coimbatore. We have the latest MAR 2020 showroom just going to be opened, and I'm glad that Mr. Ramani Shankar, the doyen of Coimbatore architect fraternity, is our design partner, our architect. We have a 20,000 square feet service facility in Ichnari. We totally have 52,000 square feet of facility in ROTM, one in Salem and other in Madurai. We are going to come up with a new facility in Madurai too. Now talking about the products of Mercedes-Benz, we have the entire gamut of products starting from 51 lakh to almost 4 crores. Now today we have on display the C, the A and the E class outside for your look. Our team is there to support you, and I'm very pleased to announce that in this quarter we have got a special scheme for architects and the CREDAI members that you can avail of offer of 1.5 lakhs as a very special scheme for this fraternity. Thank you very much for ITV Media, Mr. Indrajit, Alicia for inviting me, Naveen, and it's a pleasure to be here on the dais. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome from Team Bostik. This evening I'll be talking about some of the very innovative technology developed by Bostik for construction industry. Before I do so, let me take you through about our organization, what we do and who are we. Bostik belongs to Arkema Group. Arkema is a French leader in specialty material manufacturing. Employees close to 20,000 employees across the globe in 55 countries. Bostik, a world-class leader in sealing and bonding technology with strong footprints in more than 50 countries. Bostik is a R&D company. It's an innovation-driven company. We invest 2.8% of our revenue in developing new products which are safer to the world, also sustainable and adaptive. Bostik is 100% international player. Construction and consumer division of Bostik manufactures the complete portfolio for building construction right from the basement to the rooftop. This includes sealing and bonding, this includes tile fixing solution, and this includes waterproofing as well. Sealing and bonding, as the name says, we manufacture sealants and bondings for adhesive. They use in several application in construction industry. We have a complete portfolio, very big portfolio. I may not be able to tell all the products right away. But let's see what best I can do for you. So these sealants are basically new generation sealants, is inspired by flex cycle technology. So let's watch this video. So flex relates to the movement capacity of this product. It can be used for interior and exterior purpose. Porous and non-porous surface, this can be used. And it is zero bubbling, UV stable and label free as well. This is one of the finest innovation by Bostik. The sealants is extremely elastic in nature. It's a low modulus construction sealant. It is a bubble-free technology, and the main advantage of this product is you do not have to use primer for this. You can straight away apply. Since it is an extremely elastic, it can be used for wider joints up to 80 mm. Another technology from Bostik, no more nails, as the name speaks again. It directly eliminates the usage of nails. It's a grab adhesive, it's an instant grab adhesive, which enables multiple building products like glass, wood, concrete to adhere each other. Some of the commonly used areas where this can be used for timber staircases. It has got an excellent ability to adhere to wood to concrete. It can also be used for ACP panels, bison boards and many more. Wall and floor, another portfolio what we make is tile fixing solutions and tile adhesives. Also soft flow adhesive and wood flow adhesive. Self-leveling underlay is one of the products from tile fixing. This eliminates this kind of a self-leveling product which can be used for uneven floors, faster construction. Block stick is tile adhesive for hollow blocks. Ultra stick is for internal partitions. And Boston stick is basically designed for high movement areas for tile fixing solutions like lift, lobbies, etc. Excel Flex is basically designed for fixing tiles for high vertical areas for external application, and Aquaflex for water bodies, swimming pools and didos, etc. Super Fixol and Fixol, these two products are one of the very commonly used product in India for internal and external applications. We also make grouts, cementitious grouts and epoxy grouts which comes in multiple color, matching to the floor. Waterproofing portfolio of Bostik is very big. We make all technologies from crystalline to cementitious to acrylics to polyurethanes, and also HDP membranes, preform membranes, TPO membranes. In crystalline technology, we offer mainly two products, which basically can be applied mixing with water, ready to use, and also as an admixture mixing with concrete. In cementitious waterproofing portfolio, we make two different variants based on the size of the roof or size of the application. It is mainly designed for wet areas, balconies, bathrooms, and small terraces and water tanks as well. In acrylic category, we make again two variants, depends on the size of the roof and terraces. Now this product comes with the UV resistance property. You need not to protect this membrane, waterproofing membrane. We can walk on it, and it comes in 3 different colors. This is again one of the innovations from Bostik. It's a polyurethane based waterproof membrane, which is water based, single component, and this product can be exposed to sky, so no protection required. It's a green product, extremely elastic in nature. The another polyurethane product in waterproofing category is bitumen modified waterproofing membrane, which is basically designed for, say, retaining walls or landscape areas where you have grass and other things are coming in, because this is a root resistant product. In preform category, we have HDP membrane, pressure sensitive membrane. It is basically designed for basements, underground projects like metro projects, etc. And TPO, which is a preform membrane for large roofs. Hybrid polyurea is another innovation of Bostik. It's a 2-component spray applied waterproof coat, which will attain the kind of thickness in no time. It is 2-component, and it comes with high chemical and mechanical resistance. So this product can be used for STP tanks and large terraces. And the last but not least, epoxy waterproofing is basically designed for water tanks, drinking water tanks. And this comes with CFTRI certification. It can be used in drinking water tanks since it is USDA approved. These are some references. These products have been used in India. This Air Force stations, our sealing and bonding products have been used widely. Delhi International Airport, on the runways it is used. Hyderabad International Airport, and other countries. If you look at Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, and China, Indonesia as well. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much, and now it's your turn. So we have a stall on the back side of your hall. Please come forward, ask questions. We'll be happy to serve you. Thank you very much.
And I would like to call our dear moderator on stage to invite the panelists and kick off our session.
I'm going to use this time until the chairs are put up on the dais to request the audience to come back, as well as do the introduction of the eminent panelists. I'd like to introduce architect Prasanna Parvatikar, principal architect. They've been mentioned in the A+ DCERA awards. They won awards in the hospitality and recreation projects as well. The next panelist, architect Siddharth Shankar. He graduated in the year 97 from MIT Manipal and subsequently completed his master's from the State University of New York, Buffalo, USA. And after spending a couple of years in the US, he came back to Coimbatore and joined Shankar and Associates in the year 2002. And under his leadership, the firm has grown to its current strength and has now expanded to Chennai and Bangalore. They work on a wide variety of commercial, educational, institutional, and residential projects. He's also participated in numerous design competitions and recently won awards for Best Design in the institutional category in the Construction Awards in 2013 and 2022. Next, introduction is of architect Bhuvana Sundar. He graduated architecture in 1984 with a gold medal from the School of Architecture and Planning, Anna University, and jointly won the Louis Kahn Award twice at NASA conventions. He's worked with several eminent senior architects and also got a gold medal in his post-graduation at SPA, New Delhi. He's been the past chairman of the IA Coimbatore Center. Architect Soumya Kumar, she's been in practice for the past 20 plus years, is a member of the Council of Architects. And having practiced in Mumbai and Nagpur, she relocated her practice to Coimbatore and started her own office here in 2018. Ever since, she has had several architecture media houses, including Digest, Good Homes, Design Trends, Saint Gobain cover her projects. She has also been awarded as the best practice for the year 2021 in the residential category. So these are panelists who need no introduction, but as an honor and courtesy, I invite them on stage to come and take this discussion, debate, and dialogue forward. Welcome, panelists.
I'm going to start this particular panel by requesting architect Soumya Kumar to present her slides and share her insight. And thank you very much, Soumya, for honoring us with your presence. Please take this forward.
By itself are not parallels, they're not opposites. They are actually interdependent, they are interrelated. I personally believe technology that has stood the test of time becomes tradition. So in order to maybe elaborate on that, can we go a little bit back in the history of our own city, our Coimbatore? In the early 1900s, we had this textile industry boom happening here. That's when the factories and industries came about in the periphery of our city, in Pilamedu, in the then periphery of our city, in Pilamedu and in Papanakupalam, places like that. So when this happened, I think these industry owners, mill owners, wanted to create something very unique in terms, like when they wanted to do their abode. They wanted to create a different kind of architectural scenario than what was already present. So those are the mid-century modern and Art Deco style buildings that you see in and around race course, in Trichy Road and in Avinashi Road. So coming back, Art Deco buildings, like when you say Art Deco buildings, of course all of us know it comes with its pomp and glory, with all its stucco work and aluminium and steel and glass blocks and everything. So it was all new technology that was introduced into the building then. So coming back to where we are right now, if you go for the heritage walks in Coimbatore, they definitely take you to one of these buildings. So when I say heritage walks, it becomes our tradition, doesn't it? So what was once technologically advanced building has now become part of our tradition. So that's what I meant when I said technology that stood the test of time becomes tradition. So also when you look at some vernacular elements as maybe as simple as our jali work or our even our basic terracotta roof tile, if you see. Some 10, 12,000 years ago, some Chinese man came about with this idea of taking clay, casting it, having it furnished, and beautifully designing this interlocking system. Brilliant, isn't it? So then it was technology then. So, but now it's become part of our vernacular architecture. So that again emphasizes on what I said. So I think it's imperative that we take elements from the past and we have to redesign them to kind of fit into our contemporary or a practical frame. Yeah, I think that's what we should do. I think that's the right direction. In order to emphasize on that, in order to let you all know that I practice what I preach, we have the first slide over here. What you see over there is our ventilators, our clear story windows from our Chettinad mansions. I'm sure all of you will have noticed that. That is for the stack effect. All of us know about stack effect, right? So it's about the hot air going outside and all that. So the same thing can be applied into our buildings, in our buildings that we construct right now. This is going to definitely cut down our energy consumption, and we're talking about sustainability. I think this is going to be a brilliant idea. But then making it more practical by maybe introducing a mosquito mesh over it. Yeah. So that's how this is going to work. And the second slide would be, yeah, okay. This is the Nadumutram, the Nalakit in Kerala architecture, Nadumutram in Chettinad. So yeah, this can be repurposed into working as a courtyard, working as a place. Maybe you can multifunction it, maybe an alfresco dining or a workplace or whatever, you know. So I think this again solves. The next slide, please. Yeah, the thin line, as you can see, was again part of our vernacular architecture. It's where people sat in the evenings, where they chatted, they put their heart out. Right now, I don't think we have time for sitting and chatting, or I don't think we even have an evening in a day. We just have afternoons and then we have nights. That's all we have. So I think it's important that we have some spaces created like this, at least in the inside of the building, like how we've done here, at least in the inside of the building, so that the inmates of the house at least have a chance to sit and talk. So if you ask me why create spaces like this, sometimes architecture, most of the times architecture is about how the person lives his life. Sometimes it can also be about how we are going to define how he lives his life. So I think we should actually, as architects, look into spaces like this. So having said all this, technology will keep reinventing itself. When you look at technology, it will keep reinventing itself. It will keep reforming itself until it has reached its purpose. So I think we have to wait it out. We should not jump into all the AIs we have, all the automation that we have. So an act as simple as something as going to toilet. We have these automated doors, we have this motion sensor lights, we have the WC that you just open, flush and do whatnot. So what are we for? As human beings, are we designed to do so little? And are we there to depend on AI so much? I do not think so. So I think as architects, it's imperative that we tell our clients, or at least advise our clients, as to use AI or automation as and whenever necessary. The rest of the times, I think it wouldn't hurt to get up and draw your own curtains. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Soumya. We especially like the kind of narrative that you built here of how technology tested over long periods of time and iterations ultimately become part of tradition. I think we'll discuss that later in the rounds to come. I'm going to pass the buck now to Architect Bhuvana Sundar to discuss his and share his ideas and insights about this debate.
Good evening, architecture fraternity and other friends. So, slide can you go for first slide? So, actually, I wanted to start from macro level about how a sustainable city has been designed. Of course, we didn't had any chance to design like this, but the left one is the highly technological city, and you can see the thermal image at the bottom, and the right hand one, which is again after that later, we shape our building and building shapes us. So this example again from tradition, Norman Foster, they have observed the sections, the self-shading concepts and other things, and they've developed the Masdar city. So now you can see in the both in the same context, both the images, how environmentally they've achieved the comfort level in the city level, in the pedestrian level. There, if you see, the air temperature is same, almost same in both the places. But the MRT on the road, the asphalt is about 57 degrees. And here, if you take at the wet ground level, it's around 27 degrees. In the same climate, adopting the traditional concepts with technology, they have achieved a more comfortable thing. So in any place, actually we have to see the three things. There is our socio-cultural, society and cultural aspects, then environmental aspects, then economical aspects. These three things are the major thing which we have to consider in practice, because after 30 years of practice, I'll show you next 2 slides, our earlier practice and the present way of doing things. It all depends upon these three aspects: our environmental aspects, socio-cultural aspects, and economy. These three things dictates the ultimate practice in any area. So here, this is almost a net zero energy city where they've used technology as well as tradition coherently and achieved a net zero energy. That the other image city consumes nearly about 30 times more energy than the right hand side city. So this is a project which is close to my heart, which is very apt addition of the context like landscape and other things. So your interiors were comfortable enough for adaptive comfort standards. Of course, it is not an air-conditioned thing. It's a naturally ventilated building. Actually, the central portion acts as a stack effect. Next slide, please. Yeah, stack effect thing. It pulls in the air even if external breeze is not there. So here, the budget economy was there, and also your environmental aspects, your interior comfort aspects were dealt with, along with his socio-cultural requirements, like he wanted a palatial sort of residence. So next slide, please. So this is our present practice with modern materials, but yet the concept of environment was there, having self-shading roofs and having a double skin facade with concrete this thing. All the northwest and west were shaded. And the traditional Mashrabia concept, like traditional jolly, how technology can be used here. Again, these patterns were modeled for self-shading as well as view, because this is directly facing west. So a modern material. Again, we have not used this material straight away when it is manufactured. Actually, this supplier is from Coimbatore. He was supplying this material to Dubai for about 10 years. And after a certain time testedness, we have utilized this material. And here again, this depends upon the client, his social requirement. He wanted an identity. He is a builder. So he wanted something different. And because of that, this sort of modern materials were used. Similarly, the other project also, wood composites were used for pergolas instead of RCC. And also the double skin additional insulative panels were used as exposed concrete. So only these 3 slides I have. So whatever we do, it should we should try to understand the material, technology, and skills. That is actually, if you see the earlier project, there were skilled persons available during that time. So we were able to execute that sort of project. Now, if the same thing to be done at present point of time, your economical aspects will not match. So whatever you practice, you try to do it with these 3 points. That is, environment is more important. You study the latest technology, and you try to adopt materials which do not harm environment. At the same time, it should suit the budget of the client, and at the same time, it should also look something different to that particular point of time. It has to represent that particular point of time. So here again, technology, see in a household, if suppose if you take 30 years back, I used to take a bag to buy anything, or a bottle to buy oil. Now everything is packing technology. And during those times, housewives used to grind with their hand. Now mixie has come, grinder has come, everything machines are doing, technology is doing. And also for keeping us well, we are using treadmills. So everywhere technology is making us to consume more energy, which is not relevant. If you do your work yourself physically to a certain extent, maybe treadmill is not required. So that is what I'm feeling. Your technology is making you to suffer, and it provides the solution also. And also, whenever you use technology, you try to have time-testedness, because anything is getting obsolete, even a cell phone. Technology is a market, it is a business, it is becoming a business. Even softwares, like every now and then, they keep on updating and they tax you upon, like you have to buy new things. So technology is also something similar to that. So I think we should make our life simpler. I don't know why we have to unlearn things. We should not try to perfect things, and we are getting into a trap. It is a never-ending process. Actually, if you make a simple lifestyle and simple way of things, after all, you need some food for your stomach. And what else you want? You keep on working things and making it complicated. So that's what my feeling is. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Bhuvan. This particular dialogue has kind of seen new dimension now with your insight. Like we're trying to pitch in how technologies in the past kind of were more simple and sustainable, kind of enabling passive strategies as compared to new technologies that are enabling more active strategies. We'll take that narrative and elaborate it further. I'd like to pass the buck to Architect Prasanna for his insight.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank ITP Media, Mr. Indrajit. Thanks for inviting me on this wonderful platform with brilliant people sitting in front of me. So, Sharif, thank you. You are doing a wonderful job combining 2 different aspects of designing thing, and thank you for that. Well, sir. Vedant, you are there? So, this is a tagline that today's technology will be tradition of tomorrow. That is what Architect Shankar sir also told. And from last 3-4 days, I was just scratching my head how to present, what to present, how I can bifurcate technology from tradition and tradition from technology. Somehow I felt we cannot rip apart each other. It's a part of process, it's part of designing, not only into buildings. So I came with one kind of solution, and I just divided these 4 categories. So Gavaskar, I divided into traditional, Tendulkar will be a modern, Virat will be pro-modern, and Surya Kumar will be pro-modern max. So, so I just wanted to like console myself that this is how it is. Like yesterday's Gavaskar, he was modern those days. He was technology oriented guy that day, but now he is known as traditional classical player, and I think Tendulkar is following that, and then Virat will be a part of that. So I feel any structure or any building in today's context is modern, and tomorrow's context it will be a traditional building. So I think we can't rip apart each other. Even when I was listening to all these, the previous panelists, they were more inclined towards traditional rather than the technology based. So here there are 2 structures, and I think we know both of them. One is Bredeswar temple and the other one is ISKCON temple. I just want to categorize into 2 buildings. One is traditional and one is modern. So what I have found, I've been to these 2 places, and every time I try to connect with this space or this building, and I stand there, I try to perceive myself that why I'm here and what I am looking for. So basically when you see traditional buildings are like culturally well defined, like cultures are well defined there. Even when they design any buildings, the local lifestyle patterns are considered in their planning. At the same time, when you look at the modern building, I don't want to criticize anything on the designing aspect of the building, but somehow I'm not able to. Can you just come to the previous slide? Yeah. I'm not able to connect these kind of buildings. I've attended one marriage function in ISKCON temple, and I was trying to understand why this building is there for, or why I'm not able to connect the way I am able to connect in Bredeswar temple. So what is happening in traditional buildings, you get more social bondings, more of things, you're more of connected to the buildings, and more of the local materials are used, and those materials are sourced from the around the context of site, and the cost of the construction comes down. That's where the modern buildings are not happening like that. Modern buildings you can place it anywhere, but it has no identity. It can be placed anywhere. There is no context for modern buildings. So this is how I just wanted to bifurcate these 2 ideologies. The next slide I would like to bring into thing, like there is one conventional center in Australia, and why I wanted to put this across, because how the tradition, how the vernacular architecture can be designed in a modern way. If you look at the sketch, you have trees combined with the local settlement, hut settlement, and there is a form of the building. There is the form which evolves from that. So I suggest architects not like, don't be always on the modern side, be on the traditional side, where you can develop a building in such a way that can be a traditional modern building or something like that. So next slide please. So this is that building. So this is the hut settlement in Australia, and the trees around, and you can see the structure around. This is Jean Mary Jibo Cultural Center in Australia, and the technology is there. Then you have tradition around. People are following their lifestyles, and you have modern building as well there. So I would like to conclude with this presentation, and I want to stand with tradition and modern. We cannot rip apart. We have to follow modern detailings while designing the building. So building a design with modern technology with traditional concepts are always encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Prasanna. That's taking this to the next level. Every speaker here, every panelist here is taking this several notches higher. I especially like the interesting analogy of cricket that you kind of spoke about, and so we are seeing the kind of narrative shift towards where we're pitching new technologies versus old, Now we're looking at traditional vernacular architecture and forms versus contemporary modern forms, and where there can be a real learning. I think that's the takeaway, and how we can transform that, how we can kind of carry forward the knowledge systems of the past with new enhancements. I think that's what your talk kind of inspires me. I'm going to pass the buck now to architect Siddharth. I'm sure he has some revolutionary ideas to share with us.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all. It's lovely to see so many people still sitting here at 9:20 p.m. And Sharif to gamely do this. Fantastic. So let me start with two technology news that's just happened. Hashtag. Google just fired 12,000 people. And it's technologically impossible to make this room warmer. So, that being said, I think we've all said the same thing. I think both panels have kind of said it in different ways, but we've all said the same thing. Is that tradition and technology are, they're not even two sides of a coin, they're probably the same side of a coin. They can't be separated. I think technology is a tool that enables traditional concepts to express themselves in ways that were not done before. That's all it is. And I think architects interpret those tools the best. You take Zaha Hadid's center in Azerbaijan. She pushed technology to its maximum edge. Tradition is absolute core. I mean, for once I agree with my father. So that's the other big thing to come out of this debate. He's not here, so glad. Technology and tradition obviously coexist, and I don't think it can sort of change it. The problem I have with technology, especially in India now, is that it's unfortunately being used for the process of architecture than the product of architecture. It's about software, it's about designing software. For the longest time, I thought Rhino was an animal. I just knew it was software much later in life. Right? So, that is a problem, and that fundamentally goes back not just to architecture, but to every facet of Indian engineering, where we don't spend enough time on research. And I think that's a big problem. When you go back and research, you first research traditional methods, you understand those traditional methods, and then you use technology to enhance them. That's where we lose out as Indians. And I think the big word to come out of today, I'm not going to sum it up for you, Sharif, is context. Is context. It's all about context. It's about use of appropriate technology in the appropriate place at the appropriate time. The unfortunate side of this technological process obviously is tremendous subscription costs, which Bhuvan and me are talking about all the time to technology. But what we have kind of lost with the younger generation of architects is we've lost the gut feel, right? It's very important that an architect has a gut feel to understand the client, to understand the context, to understand everything. That is being lost because of the over-dependence on technology. As Soumya mentioned, technology is a tool and that has to be used. And that I think is a very important point to drive home. Let me talk about the 4 slides I put together. This is a dance studio which we designed actually for my cousin. It's the most orthodox and probably the most traditional space. So we had to do it that way. Where the technology helped us is in the flooring. We had to find a flooring that would not, cause knee pain to these dancers. These are people dancing day in and day out. It's a Bharatanatyam, it's a classical dance school. And this flooring completely has a certain amount of resilience, so it doesn't transfer the jolt to your knees. But more importantly, when dancers dance as a group, their communication is through the sound of their feet. Wood absorbs that sound. A lot of dancers nowadays say we can't communicate to the next dancer through the sound of their feet. And this floor, it's a specialized vinyl that we were able to sort of source, does that. It gives the right amount of noise, it gives the right amount of resilience. And you see all those Athangudi patterns and things like that. Athangudi tiles today are very, very difficult to maintain because they're not made the way they are. So technology ended us getting us nice tiles that are, vitrified ceramic, doubly charged tiles that will probably last a lifetime. Maybe it's the wrong thing, maybe it's artificial, maybe it doesn't sound right, but it's practical. So that's where it helped. Next slide, please. Thanks. So this is a residential tower in Racecourse. One of the big challenges in any residential towers is something that I've always felt is most residential today towers are modern concrete blocks. We're probably going back to the Soviet era. The one word I hate is contemporary. Because contemporary means it's stagnant. Contemporary means it's of today. It's not dynamic. It's not future-proof. So I've always thought contemporary is the wrong word to define any kind of building. Contemporary is of that period. There's no timelessness to it. So one of the things that we tried to do, especially with a tall building, was to sort of humanize it to some scale, was to use brick. And we did do that. But then the big challenge, again, was the brick wears out. Right? The clay wears out. There's a natural process of wearing. Some people find it beautiful, but the builders don't. Right? There are going to be salting and we were talking about traditional masons not being there, traditional, craftsmen not being there. So we use these bricks that are actually concrete bricks, which are finished like bricks. Beautiful, beautiful product actually. And technology helped us in doing something that was traditional. Next one, please. This is a hospital's atrium, something that we work a lot on. And we probably use the most traditional way, a courtyard, which I think everybody on this panel has talked about, to bring in not only just light and ventilation, but also bring in a certain sense of calm, which is probably the most important thing in a hospital. Interestingly, we've just completed a hospital which is completely precast. It's probably the largest precast hospital in India. It's about 6.28 lakh square feet. KMC, which is new medical college. It's a real use of technology. We were pushed to the limit by the technology. But what we did not do and what we failed to do was to push the technology to do what it had to do, what we wanted it to do for us. So we sort of bowed down to the technology and created we could have pushed it beyond. And that's where I thought we sort of lost out. The other hospital that we're working on is we're working on a product called Saypost, which is a composite beam, which is a composite girder. It's a patented product, and actually the structural engineers from Turkey, where we're doing about 20 meter spans, huge 20 meter spans. It's a hospital building where this technology has brought in such flexibility to the ever-changing need of a hospital that it's amazing. It's truly, truly amazing. But now we've been a little smarter, and we are trying to get the technology to do our bidding. And that's where your traditional training comes in. The traditional architect's curiosity, the traditional ability to push things beyond its boundaries come in. I think that's extremely important. The next one, please. So this is a project that we are working on in Trichy. And it's the most traditional form. It's actually derived from the plinth of the Srirangam temple. And we're using these concrete shells. Each of it is cantilevered about, I'd say about 22 feet. So we draw our structural engineers mad. And finally we came up with a PT curved shell. It's a post-tension cell. We just we're having technology problems with the submission process because the server is not accepting the file. So till that technological problem is solved, I don't think we'll see fruition of this. But I thought I'd at least show it. And this is a project where the technology has really helped us sort of realize what we wanted it to do. So there we are.
As expected, I was kind of aware that Lowen's panel will kind of push the debate deeper and dwell upon some of the nicer things. I'm especially thankful to Architect Siddharth for two things. One is to kind of talk about the the kind of indulgence in research to kind of understand traditional methods and then use that research to develop new technologies, especially technologies that are contextual here, technologies that are time tested, especially when I was talking about non-Western societies, this was typically what I was talking about. So that's one interesting aspect. The other aspect has been, you said, to make technology to work for you. And I think that's the best part, because in this whole kind of gamut, there is this tendency for, using software tools or using other, not just software tools, but a whole wide range of technologies and new materials. And then we start to play with that, and that really doesn't kind of make complete sense sometimes, or probably feels like you're working within boundaries, which architects and creative people really don't want to. They want to question those boundaries. I think our whole design practice rests there on those margins where we're constantly testing the boundaries. So that's a very interesting aspect. I'm going to pass this to the next round and probe this a little further by trying to pull out some understanding from your own discussions. Now I'm going to start with architect Soumya. And very interesting when you said that it's imperative to take elements of the past. So we're already seeing this through practice and through some of the visuals that the panelists showed us, that there is a kind of a sense of strengthening of traditional methods and techniques, a sort of revival. How often do you see that in your practice, and how does that really reflect, do you think, and how do you foresee that as a future for Coimbatore?
I told you to be kind.
Thought I was.
Future of Coimbatore. I do not know about that. But whatever I said, I think that is the right way to go. I do not know if I'm answering your question directly. Maybe I want to say how tradition and technology, maybe they're like how architect Siddharth was saying, it's interrelated. That's maybe that is around the point that you're asking. So I think technology, like maybe in order to when you have the traditional buildings, in order to document them, or to when you do the conservation architecture, even as recent as last week, this beautiful building that opened up in Hyderabad. It was done by the William Dalrymple Foundation. If you all must have read about it. I believe it looks like a replica of White House, and it has got this beautiful paper mesh wallpaper on the ceiling that's from Kashmir, and so many beautiful things over there. When you look at all that, how all this was restored is definitely with the use of technology. So that's how technology will aid in preserving tradition. And otherwise, like if you see the other side, how tradition will help technologies, definitely you need a template for it, right? You need a template for anything that you build on. So that's going to be the template.
Interesting. This very thought that you said that, this is kind of imperative to move this, our past learnings, especially as architects and designers, and that leads me to ask architect Bhuvan, and you said that there's a certain kind of imbibing these traditional methods and values, and how often do you see that kind of happening in new projects? Are you kind of worried that there's not much of learning from the past, learning from tradition, and there is a certain kind of impetus to push new tools, without proper research or without proper full-fledged understanding of our own methods that we have in our region?
No, I would say technology helps us to analyze design in a better manner, but technology has not come to that extent or economically to that extent that can be used like in other countries or Western countries. Because as a tool, of course, we are able to quantify the subjective matters into more objective. So for that, as a tool, technology helps us, and we have also studied certain areas where the realistic data and the simulation data, it correlates to a certain extent, or even we can adjust to a certain extent or modify the results according to the practical study. So as a tool it uses, but it is used. But the problem is, as a production process and other things, still it is very highly expensive for the economical context what we have right away here. So we have to understand that's where the society comes into picture. So as a client, if they have a vision, then we'll be able to try out certain things. But if they don't have a vision, if suppose for a simple example, a person wears a shirt and dhoti, you can't make him wear a coat suit. Am I right? So as an architect, we are a consultants. We are not a painter. Whatever we feel like we can express on the canvas. Okay, so it depends upon the contractor as well as client. All three people, if put together and their vision is common, then only a good product is realized. So that's what my feeling is. Technology, of course, wherever the client is exposed to that technology, and if he wants it and at any cost and things like that, we can always use that. But we should not forget the sustainability of the things. So that is more important. Because at the end of the day, if you design a technologically iconic building and it consumes or it pollutes the environment, then there is no use. So for that only we have to refer to the traditional methods or how really they have, those things are performing. So we have to really craft the performance in the architecture, whatever we do.
I'm glad you touched upon that aspect, that there's a certain kind of unlearning that needs to happen, and there's a certain kind of simplicity that design should evoke, rather than creating complex issues that need further resolution. So where do you think that technology can really play a role here in trying to simplify things?
No, whatever I have told is more spiritual rather than architecture or something like that.
Okay.
Because it is a never-ending process. The technology never ends anywhere. You have seen a lot of fiction movies, so we will end up there only. But if we make our life simple, everything will be simple and it will be more enjoyable.
I'll take you from that. That's interesting. I'm also going to move to Architect Prasanna. There's one very interesting aspect that you touched upon when you showed visuals of the temples and spoke about the kind of cultural values that it reflects and the kind of social bonds that it provided. And I saw similar cues when Architect Soumya showed the Thinnai, and she saw how there was a certain kind of socializing that. So architecture was an enabler for social activities, for people to kind of come forward. There was this strong relationship. So in your opinion, what do you think can be takeaways from such learnings of the past into new projects, into buildings that we design?
We can't just take it everything and try to implement in today's context, because clients, they are very excited about their project or their residence and all. But what I would like to say is, like, those days we used to eat with hand, now we are trying to eat with spoons. But if you allow a robot to come and ask us to feed, it's not possible. So that is the top notch of technology we are still yet to reach there. So we have accepted these rules right now. So few technology things we can adapt in our designing and try to relate between the past and the present. The past buildings were timeless. So how we can create those timeless structures in today's context where the larger crowd can come in, the larger masses can come in, they enjoy the building, not only temples, not only anything, not only public buildings. Any user, particularly he wants to get connected to particular that structure. So those aspects we can bring into our design, but that is continuous process, I think. Thank you.
I'm glad kind of all converging into the fact that there is a certain, a continuum that is required. And that's precisely what architect Siddharth also spoke about, the appropriateness in terms of time and context and material and cost and other things. Siddharth, I just want to then kind of, ask for further reflectance. When you say that you want to make technology work for you, there is a certain research of traditional methods that's required. How do you see that happening? What do you foresee that? How do you think that these things can kind of imbibe the best of both, the past technologies and new tools, and where it can kind of push architecture for the future?
So, I'll answer that question. I'll probably take a cue from what Prasanna's slide about Surya Kumar Yadav. Right? You have to know the rules to break them. So it's very, very important that you know your tradition. Surya Kumar Yadav has to play a traditional sweep in order to play a scoop. You can't do it without knowing the traditional sweep. So it's very important that you know your traditions. It's very important that you understand the traditions. It's very important that you understand the basic principles on which architecture is built. Point number one. Point number two, I was recently in South Korea for one of these. South Korea and Japan, I think, have done a phenomenal job of marrying both technology and tradition. I would say Japan more so. I mean, you look at every architectural movement they have spearheaded. You take Metabolism. I mean, all these little cubes and things like that. I think Kishore Kurokawa and Kenzo Tange did it in the 1970s. Arata Isozaki did it in the 1970s. Right? But they kept the basic principles, they kept the fundamentals absolutely tight, absolutely grounded. I think you know about the Naga King towers was the capsule towers. But the fundamental living style, including the tatami mats and how they sat with them, sort of was kept. So I think we're all probably coming back to the same thing. I mean, that's what I would urge every young architect today. Unfortunately, there is definite, I won't say people have lost it, but then there's definite decrease in fundamental skills. Very few people can sketch. I don't know if you've seen Bhuvan sir's partner, Mr. Kalyana Sundaram's sketch, or have you seen Philip Fowler's sketch? None of it, I mean, there was a little sketch on the corner on one of Prasanna's slides. That's better than any rendering. So, what is very important to understand in this technology, I don't think it's a technology versus tradition debate. It's not it. I think very important to understand that ultimately the human element is what matters. A lot of technology came out of empathy to human lifestyle. I'm sure you've been to Singapore. There are certain areas in Singapore, when you pass through on the train, they pass through some of the condominiums, the windows mist. It's not because it's cool technology, it's because there's an empathy. Most technology comes out of that empathy, and that empathy is derived from traditional upbringing. So I think it's very important to understand tradition for you to be able to push it and for you to be able to create technology and make technology bend to one's will. Those are the 4 laws of robotics, right? The 4 laws of robotics were designed to make sure that technology does not overpower us. Every dystopian future movie talks about technology overpowering us. Right? Terminator, et al. Right? 4 laws of robotics were designed so that technology would be appropriately, contextually, empathetically utilized for human beings' development.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think you made my task for the end a lot easier. All of you have. I'm now going to pass the mic to the audience. If there are reflections, if there are kind of things you'd like to discuss with the panelists on the dais and also the next gen panelists of the dais, please feel free. There are questions? Okay, this question is for Architect Arvind from RR. Can somebody pass a mic to him, please? Or he can come here. This particular curious architect or person from the audience wants to know the uses of organic, parametric, free-flowing architecture for typical LIG, MIG budget houses. How that can work for our typical public, architectural housing projects.
So if you give me a brick, if I have to arrange in a traditional English pond, it's okay. Otherwise, if I have to explore, place it in a certain angle, it have a certain effect interior-wise. Thermally, it will have different effects. So when you're talking about low-cost housing or MIG, LIG, MIG, so you need to find materials that are resource-driven, locally available, that's of low cost, but you need to find out solutions in a way to configure or arrange them in a different way, so that you can harvest better energy, or as I earlier said, it can be used to collect water and store it. The geometry should be optimized to make use of the natural forces to sustain energy. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, please.
There's one thing that I really love that you talked about. We're talking about data.
Yeah.
Without data, nothing works.
Yes.
Because like somebody said, if you don't quantify it, it's probably not true.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great point that you were talking about.
Thank you, sir.
And what are the things which we can't see and we can't measure? I think as architect, whether we design building or landscape, we really need to be very, very sensitive about this intangible data. What are they? One of my friend was commenting about smart city projects on what is the relevance of these bamboo structures and tensile structures? How is it rooted to the history of Coimbatore? That triggered a lot of thoughts, So how our designs are really context sensitive, and as landscape architect we always see that the designs are site sensitive and environment sensitive, but what about the context? And when we are talking about the context, what about the socio-economical thing, and what about the sentiments which are attached? When you're talking about West Bengal, how many of us remember where is East Bengal? What is the history behind it? So someone was trying to pass on some resolution to West from Bengal, which was opposed. Why? Because it's not just eliminating a single word, it's about eliminating a history, a parcel of the history. So we really need to be very, very sensitive as architects, as designers. We really need to cater to the, Maslow's triangle talks about 5 different kind of needs. We really need to aim, we really have to aim to cater to the topmost triangle. How do we do that? So I just wanted to add this thought.
Thank you, Venkat Lakshmi. First of all, thank you, the organizers, the sponsors, the panelists, the audience, not just for participating, but for such a large turnout and so much patience to kind of see through this. On the other side, I'm thankful to the panelists that, this thought that I had that these are not opposites that need to be pitched against each other, but rather these are kind of, things that work in tandem. These are kind of aspects that we always want to consider in design. We've been doing this in the past and we will do it today, and we will continue to look at, past technologies, ideas, and try and transform them into newer things. We'll have tools that will kind of enable this, and so this is going to be a continuous process. It's going to be appropriately taken at each stage. I'm sure there is also a certain designer angle to it. Each one has a reflectance of their own ideas and philosophies of architecture, and how much of it should be imbibed And I think that's the spectrum that I was talking about. All of these are okay. All of these are perfectly fine. We live in a kind of a place that's very rich culturally, very diverse. And I'm sure there's space for all this diversity to exist as well. That said, thank you very much. And I'm going to pass the buck to the organizers. And thanks to the panelists for participating and the audience as well. Thank you very much.
Call Mr. Maria Joseph, Zonal Sales Head, South India, Boston, India, and Mr. Pushparaj, GM, Radisson Blue, Coimbatore, on stage for felicitations. Please give them a huge round of applause.